welcome to Hop on Pop Culture. I'm your host, Ashley Dion, and this is my co-host, Maisie May. Today will be what I hope is the first of many tributes to the 90s, Observe the Flannel. So I'm going to be giving you what I deemed the most important albums of the 90s during the 90s while I was living it. To me, the 90s wasn't just about flannel, leather, and wearing a skirt with boots. It was also about acknowledging that you were depressed and acknowledging that you were angry. And to me, the two albums that made it okay, you're so cute, to be an angry little girl were Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette and Tidal by Fiona Apple. Let's start with Jagged Little Pill because it's obvious that that was an angry album.
It's not fair to deny me all the cross-eyed that you gave to me. You ought to know.
When I was little, I thought it was Cross-Eyed Bear. So, I can remember being in 4th grade and just swinging on the swings in unison and singing in unison, You Oughta Know, with 6 other girls, and having the teachers just lose their minds because you said go down on you in a theater. You didn't know what it meant, and if they hadn't drawn attention to it, you probably wouldn't even have thought about it. But you did. Congratulations, teachers. Good job. So there was that album. You screamed and you felt good about it. And then there was Tidal. It was a little bit more subtle, but you were still angry when you sang Sleep to Dream, and to me, you can't discount these albums as being amazing because they made these artists who they were. And you look back and they're still pretty fantastic. Let's move on to Collective Soul, because Collective Soul was my favorite band for about 10 years. My favorite song for about 10 years was December, which is on their self-titled album, their second one. I loved that album. I still love that album. When I hear one of the songs from it on the radio, I perk up. It was an amazing, amazing album, and it really showed you who they were as a band. Let's move on to grunge. I wasn't as into Nirvana as everyone else. To me, Bush and Silverchair were grunge in the 90s. I can remember getting my first guitar Christmas Day, trying to pluck out Swallowed as I watched the video on VH1 as it premiered. I can remember seeing Silverchair perform Tomorrow on SNL. Razorblade Suitcase for Bush and Frog Stomp for Silverchair were to me very important albums, and they still are. Toad the Wet Sprocket. Most of my favorite Gin Blossom songs were actually Toad the Wet Sprocket songs from the album Dulcinea. I heard Something's Always Wrong. I heard that song in Fear in 96. And I had to look up what album it was, and we actually owned it. So for me, every song on that album was just wonderful, and it still is. So go back and look at that one if you don't know it. Now you have to break up the depression with something, and that something for the world was Ace of Base. If you do not love Ace of Base, you're lying to yourself and everyone around you. You just are. The Sign. That was the one. It really was. So, check it out, because it's important. Joan Osborne's Relish. Yes, What If God Was One of Us? Everybody knows that one, but it's not her best one. Check out Ladder, Saint Teresa, Man in the Long Black Coat, which is a Bob Dylan cover, I believe, and Spiderweb. REM. It was difficult for me to choose which REM album was most important to me, because there's so many good ones, especially in the 90s. But I chose Automatic for the People. Everybody Hurts, Drive, Man on the Moon. Everybody Hurts is a quintessential 90s song, again acknowledging that you're depressed. This one acknowledges that everyone is depressed, at least at one point or another. Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Some of my favorite music videos from the early 90s were about this, they came from this album. And I think when people look back on the 90s, this will be one of the albums that they're not going to forget. Honorable mention, let's say Dirt, Alice in Chains. Purple, Stone Temple Pilots. Ace of Base, The Bridge, which I actually think is a better album than The Sign. Everybody else is doing it, so why can't we? The Cranberries. And last but not least, No Doubt's Tragic Kingdom.